Grief can be heavy, but faith gives us hope. Welcome to a Catholic Journey podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Diaz. Join me as we explore how to lean on God in hard times, embrace the beauty of the Catholic faith, and walk this journey together. Welcome to a new episode of A Catholic Journey. We are still in July. I am once again sitting in my car, and this thought just came over me. Yesterday, it might not have been yesterday, but the other day, I sat down to write an essay, if you will, and it was about losing my home. And I wanted to dive into that with you today because I know that this is a topic that I've never heard anyone talk about before, at least not with me. And I dove into this on my essay, but what do I mean by that? What do I mean about losing my home? If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for finding this podcast. I lost my parents 3 years ago, 1 month apart from each other. So I lost my mom in January of 2022, and exactly 1 month to the day, I lost my dad. And that was the worst time of my life, without a doubt. And two things I found super interesting about that time in my life as I look back and as I reflect. Number one, 2021 was amazing. It was, I would say, the best year of my life thus far. I was on this fitness journey. I had turned 40. My relationship and my marriage felt like it was on a high. My kids were good, my parents were good. Like, it was the best year of my life. And then December came, and that was the beginning of the end for me. When you lose your parents, and I don't think it matters at what age, I was a grown adult. I'm married. I had 3 kids. I felt orphaned. I felt like I lost my home. I had no home anymore. There was no home base for me to go to. And that was just as devastating as the realization that I lost both my parents. Like, the 2 people that God brought together on this earth to create my life were now gone from this world. And that feeling, it's kind of hard to explain, but the best way I can interpret it or explain it is that I felt orphaned. I truly knew what the definition of feeling alone meant. I understood that lonely feeling in such a deeper way that I've never felt before in my life. The people who helped create me, who brought me into this world, who cared for me, who knew my story from conception, were gone. And part of my story died with them because there are stories and memories that they had of me that I don't know. I don't remember them. I have vague memories at 4 or 5 years old, but anything before that is gone with them. We take our parents so much for granted for such a big part of our life as we grow up, right? But I don't think that any type of preparation truly prepares you for the feeling of true abandonment, that feeling of being left alone in the desert. And that's kind of what it feels like in a weird way, because you are left alone, right? You are now in this desert. The people who brought you into this world, they're gone. And that is such a sobering feeling. Such a sobering feeling. When they died, I know this sounds so silly, but like literally when they died, I felt like that is when I officially grew up. That is when I was stamped on the paper, I am an adult now. It's me. It's me. I am on my own. Yes, I'm married. I have my husband and I have my children, and I've been parenting for years and I've been doing the grown-up thing for years. But there is something to be said about being able to go back home and have your mom make you your favorite dish, or coming down with a cold and being able to call your mom or your dad and they come and they make you your favorite soup and just hang out with your kids for a few hours while you take rest and actually nap and actually recover. There is something so deep to be said about that. And when it's gone, it is like a horse kicks you in your chest or an elephant sits on you. Like, it's like, oh my God, they are gone. They're actually gone. I can turn over 1,000 stones and they won't be there. And it's weird because, like I said, I've been adulting for years, right? I'm 40 something years old, but there was always this thing of like, I can go back home. My kids are driving me crazy. I can go back home and like have abuela and abuelo entertain the kids and be a child for a while, right? Not in the actual child sense, but like I can be carefree for like 2 hours and know that like abuela's taking care of them and they're good, right? They're solid. They're being loved. They're being spoiled. They're being taken care of. I feel like I'm being taken care of. My husband felt like he was taken care of. And it's so unexplainable just what an amazing feeling that is. And when it's gone, it's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm the grown-up now? Like it's on me now. And not to say that I didn't make decisions before. I mean, I was interpreting for my parents since like the age of 5. You know, my parents were immigrants to this country and I had to do all those things. And to a certain degree, I had to grow up and be able to fend for myself in a lot of ways because I was doing it for them, right? I was advocating for them. I was sticking up for them. I was translating things for them. I was making doctor's appointments and doing this and doing that. So I know how to be grown. I know how to adult. That part of my life didn't change, but it's always that I have a home base to go to. It's that security blanket of like, well, I have my mom. I have my dad. And I know that if my house blows up tomorrow, they will welcome me and my family with open arms. No questions asked. No expectations, right? Like, come, we got you. And that safety net kind of just fell out from under me. And that was the scary part, that my home was gone. And I bring it back to like the people who helped create me are no longer here. And that is such a sobering feeling. It's scary. And it's weird because I didn't think it would be, you know? We as children, we as sons, we as daughters, like, right? The way it's supposed to go is that we grow up, we are adults, our parents will age and they will eventually pass on, right? It's kind of like expected, but it's that logical expected thought that we tuck away in the back of our heads. And we know it's there. We know that's like the order of life, right? But the illogical part of us, the child in us, the daughter and the son in us is like, well, my mom and my dad are going to live forever. So I don't know what you guys are talking about. There's that fantasy, that dream that we all have, right? Because we know that we will all pass, but we don't want to accept it. We want our parents to live forever. We want them to see our children grow up and, God willing, see their children grow up, right? We want them to live forever. And then they don't. And then the reality sets in like, oh my God, they didn't live forever. I will walk the rest of my days on this earth without the 2 people who helped create me. My origin is gone. And that broke my heart when I experienced that. And then the realization of like, everyone I know who's lost their parent has felt this and like no one talks about this. And then for me, that's where God stepped in. Because like I've been saying, my parents helped create me. Who did they partner with to create me? None other than God. And so while I ache that my parents are not anywhere on this earth with me, I ache. That ache never goes away. But the other realization that comes out of that is that they did not create me alone. I have a heavenly Father. I have a heavenly mother. Our Blessed Mary is my heavenly mother. Jesus is my heavenly Father. I am not alone because I now cling to my faith. And so does that belief take the ache away? No, it doesn't. I'd be lying if I said it did. But I look to God now for that comfort. And it's not perfect. It's not perfect because I'm not perfect. I am so broken and so sinful, right? Because I'm human. But that's what I strive for every single day, is to keep my focus on Him, because He is the one that saved me from my despair after my parents passed away. Jesus is the one that called on me. He said, come here, come home, sit with me, cry with me. And that is what I hold on to, is knowing that when I was at my lowest and God knew it, He called on me. My child, you are not orphaned. I don't think I would have gotten through the last 3 years the way I have if I didn't listen to God calling me. If I would have turned my back and tried to cope on my own, I don't think I would have made it. I would have been so bitter and so angry and even more broken than before. And that's not to say that I'm healed or that I no longer grieve or that I am this perfect picture of my faith, because I am so far from it. I am still learning. I feel like a newborn baby. I feel like a newborn baby just trying to figure my faith out, just trying to figure out how to be a good disciple of God, how to follow His word, how to not let myself sink into the rabbit hole of grief, because that rabbit hole is so deep and so dark that it's toxic to live in that space. What's funny about that too is after my parents passed away, I had to sell their house, my childhood home, the house that me and my sisters grew up in. That is the only house I ever knew for as long as I could remember. My very first memories are in that house. And a part of me thought that I would be so heartbroken having to sell that house. But really, once my parents were gone, that house wasn't home. That house was my home because my parents were in it, because my parents built our home in that house. And once they were no longer there, that wasn't home for me. It was just a house. And when I had to hand over the keys to that house, I cried, partly because I was relieved that that task was done and over with. It had been it had been a year. It took us a year to get the house ready and sold. And so that was a long, stressful process. And so when I handed those keys over, I was relieved. And part of that crying was just the release of the relief, right? And part of it was grieving, like, my childhood home is gone. Another symbol, I guess, my home base is gone. The only childhood house I knew is gone. But at the same time, in my heart, that wasn't home anymore because my parents no longer lived there. They weren't there. And so that house also didn't mean much to me anymore. I have my memories, I have pictures, I cherish them, but would I ever want to step foot back into that house? No, I wouldn't. Because if I did, I would just expect them to be there, and they're not. And it's an eerie feeling. I remember when I had to go to the house and make trips there to, like, clean up and organize and do things, and I would go into the house, and this was like right after they passed away, and like the house was obviously exactly as they left it. Nothing was moved, nothing had changed. And so it's this weird mind trip that happens because you walk into the home and your heart knows they're gone, right? Because you just had their funerals. But when you're in the home and everything is as it was and nothing has changed and nothing has moved yet, you're literally expecting them. Like, your mind just expects them to, like, come downstairs or walk into the house. Like, oh, they're just not here because they went somewhere. It's like such a strange, I don't want to say phenomenon, but it's just such a strange feeling. And then the realization of, like, oh no, they're not coming back. They're not going to just show up. They're not just at the store. They didn't just go somewhere. They're gone. If you've lost a parent, did you feel like that? Did you feel like home was gone. It took me a while to accept it. And I don't know if I have fully accepted it, but I think I'm just aware of it. And I just live each day the best way that I can, because I can't change it. I can't undo it. I can't magically make them come back. But there is that feeling always that I am disconnected from something. I have a home and I'm building this home base for my kids, right? But my home base is gone. And I do try to focus on my home now being also my home base, but it's not the same, you know? And I think when you lose your parents, it's always this weird energy around it, because, people tell you, oh, well, they lived such long lives, they lived good lives, long lives. It was time for them to go. But as the child, you're like, I wanted more time. It wasn't, yes, they were old and they lived long lives, but why couldn't it be longer? It's all these questions. It's all these, I think with every type of grief, it's a different scenario of what people tell you. I know for me, a lot of it was, well, they were older, they lived long lives. It was their time. And in my heart, it was no, I still feel a little bit robbed. But I also know that God is merciful, that God is so good. And maybe the mercy that he showed in their death wasn't for me. Maybe it was for them. Maybe he was being merciful for them in some way that I'll never know or ever understand. I don't know, right? I don't know what I don't know. I know that through their passing, I have found my faith. And in some ways, I'm building a new home base. And it has been such an intimate and slow process. And I struggle. Don't think because I came up with this podcast that I am a saint, because I am so far from that. I'm figuring it out, and that's why it's a journey. But I know without my faith, I would not have been able to deal with this grief. And I cling to that, and I remind myself of that every day when I want to let the hopeless thoughts win. Because to give in to those thoughts of guilt, of resentment, of anger, it's all just letting the enemy win. If you relate to this episode in any way, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me, you can comment on the podcast. I think if you're listening on the podcast app or on YouTube, I check comments there also. Grief is definitely not something that we just get over. It's something that we learn to live with. And it's up to us. We get to choose how we carry that grief, how we live with that grief. We can either let it swallow us alive, or we can work out our hearts and our minds and learn to carry it. And some days are easier than others, no doubt. But if you are on this faith journey, you are not alone, friend. If you found this episode helpful in any way, or insightful in any way, or know someone who can benefit from listening to this episode, I encourage you to share it. That's how we get more people to hear it and to help more people who need it. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, where Jesus leads the way, we are called to follow. Thank you for joining me on a Catholic journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps others find the podcast and be part of this journey. Until next time, remember, where Jesus leads the way, we are called to follow.